Okay, so I decided to take on a little project, and the first thing I want you to notice is how little of the caliper is seen. Because this project, what it is I'm going to flush the brake fluid, and I have some rust on my rotors. These were genuine Volvo, but they weren't painted. The newer ones are painted, so I don't know what's going on with this one. But anyway, I'm going to take the brakes apart, and I'm going to touch up the caliper, and I'm going to paint the rotors. And in addition to all that, I'm going to flush the fluid. It looks pretty dark, which actually doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you how much water is in there. The brakes work fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The vehicle's 2009, it's 2021. I don't have any issues. I'm not testing the fluid to see how much water's in it, but I am going to flush it out just because it's over 10 years old. You know, if you're not going to keep your car, or you're getting ready to sell it or something, you know, stuff like that I wouldn't go through the trouble of flushing the fluid, especially if the brakes are working just fine. But just because it's, 12 years old, I think there's probably a little bit of moisture in there maybe, and it just doesn't look pretty. So I'm gonna refresh it. Okay, I have my .3 brake fluid. I have my red spray paint. I'm not going to do the prep work. I'm gonna clean it up, yeah. I mean, I am gonna get it ready for paint, the calipers, I mean. But I'm not gonna do the whole, you know, get it all perfect, clean, nice, ready for paint, and do the, you know, clear coat afterwards, you know. But if you are starting from scratch and it's just bare metal, there are plenty of videos out there. You should clean it up thoroughly, do your primer, paint, clear coat. But since it's already been painted, you know, I'm not gonna strip it and start from scratch. I have some synthetic .3. The vehicle uses .3, so I'm just gonna use .3. And I bought some high temperature black, and I bought the dull, not the glossy, because calipers have the potential of getting real hot. The engine paint was $6.50. That might have worked. $6.50 is probably, good Lord, if you see $6.50 on a street car, you are really in an emergency situation. So, you know, I expect this to last. Also, the high temperature heat, the brake caliper paint was $500. This just gives me a ridiculous safety margin, is the only reason I bought it. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So again, we're back here. I'm going to jack up the car, take off the wheel, put a jack stand underneath there, do these one at a time, and it's probably going to take me quite a while, because, you know, when you watch paint dry, takes a long time. I don't know how long it's going to take me to prep everything and get it all cleaned up and back together and let the paint dry. It's spring, it's kind of cool out, it's not hot. I don't have humidity right now, so we'll see how long everything takes and how long the whole project goes. So anyway, fun stuff. All right, 19 millimeter, take lug nuts off. And we'll do that a couple more times. All right, I have these M14 by 1.5 studs here that I'm going to put in. I don't know where I got them from. They're knurled. And you can also put a socket in there and screw them in or take them out, because I have found that the wheel bearing, this screws into the wheel bearing hub, sometimes that rusts up and these become very difficult to put in, even though your lug nuts, your lug bolts, I'm sorry, seem to go in and out real easily. So anyway, I don't know where I got them from. Tire rack, who knows? RM European, I don't know. I saw them somewhere. I'm sure you can do a search. I don't think I got them on eBay. I really don't buy too much from eBay. I don't trust it. But anyway, that goes on, it's makes life a little bit easier. So that's what I mean by makes life a little bit easier. Squeak, squeak, take it right off. And voila. So as you can see, only this part of the caliper was really visible. So that's all I'm going to worry about. The caliper mounting bracket, I'm going to take that off and clean it up, so I might hit that a little more, even though that's even more hidden. But my main concentration is the rotor, and that's what really heats up. That's where all your temperature is. And your brake pads, I mean, you don't even see that temperature. You see it on the rotor. So you don't need really super high heat on your calipers that much. But anyway, here we go. Okay, again, I want to emphasize, you know, this is not a show car, it's a street car. You know, we drive in the rain and snow and sleet and hail and everything else. You know, it's an everyday driver. Use the crap out of it, tow with it. You can see all the dirt all around, all over the place. So this isn't going to be, you know, how to do a, you know, show quality caliper paint job. I'm just going to hide the rust is what I'm shooting for with the rotor, and then touch up the brake caliper and clean things up a little bit, do a little maintenance, flush the fluid, you know, easy peasy. Alright, Volvo rear caliper brakes. The first thing I learned, actually it was the last thing I learned, is that I used to take off the caliper first. However, the caliper mounting bolts, which is also the caliper slide bolts, the bottom one is extremely difficult to get to and to work with an Allen. I mean, you're constantly doing quarter turns, 8 turns. It's a real pain in the butt. So what I've learned is to take the whole unit off together. So we're going to take the bolts off of the caliper mounting bracket and then remove the caliper and then take it off of the caliper mounting bracket. So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is take the anti-rattle clip off. Should be pretty easy, except I'm fighting it. There we go, that's done. And now the 2 bolts that hold on the caliper mounting bracket. Alright, to loosen the bolts, we're going to go forward. We're going to go clockwise as we're looking at it. If you were looking at it from the back, it would be counterclockwise. And then here is the bottom bolt. As you can see, I have plenty of room. I can hit it with a hammer, no problem. We can remove it. Have 2 speed sensor clips. I'm just going to disconnect them from the hose so I can move the caliper about freely. Alright, I do have these automatic wrenches. I had to use a standard wrench, typical wrench, to break it loose. Then I can use an angled one if I come down from the top, for both the top and bottom. And then I can use a flat one on the bottom if I go underneath to get the bottom one. And of course it'll reach the top one. And you can see their little quarter turn, 8th turn to get the bolt out. Fun stuff. Alright, the caliper is up and out of the way. I'll deal with painting that later. I'll take it all apart and, I mean, take the mounting bracket off of the caliper, you know, take the pads off, clean it up, hit it with some spray paint, you know, nothing to really worry about. Here is my main issue. I'm really surprised that these weren't painted. I don't understand that. The newer ones, they're painted, so you don't have to deal with this. But, got to dismount the rotor, clean it up a little bit, wire brush it, clean it up, paint it, put it back on. So let's get to that. Alright, the rotor assembly screw is typically 10 millimeters. So you can take that off. Easy peasy. It is M6 by 1 if it's missing, or you need to replace it because it's all rusted or corroded or broken, or you have a sometimes these are Phillips head screws. And they might even be socket head cap screws, you know, on some of them. Heck, I don't know. But it's a M6 by 1 if you need to replace it. And off it comes. Easy peasy. So typically what I do is I put some anti-seize on here. Right here before you see that dip in there. That dip is to help get the rotor off. If it does all rust up on there and you have to get the rotor off, there's just that little lip right there. Now this, the shop did the wheel bearing. Previous video I did wheel bearings. The shop did this one, and then I did the other 3. So anyway, that's why there's no anti-seize on here. That's why it's a little bit rusty. So when I clean it all up, I'll make sure and put just a thin coat right there, so when it does get some corrosion on there, hopefully the rotor won't stick to it. Okay, let's take a look at the caliper mounting bracket. You can see where the paint is and is not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it off, and then I'm going to paint it where it's already painted, and then I'm going to clean up the grease and stuff that's already there and put fresh on. Instead of cleaning it up and taping it off and all that other stuff, I can see where the spray paint, whatever it was. I think the dealer did this to sell the car, but anyway, and then I think that's how I'm going to do the caliper mounting bracket. Okay, there we go, all wiped off with the alcohol rag, everything that could come off real easy. Then I'm just going to hit it with some paint, maybe a couple coats, one really light coat, and then when that dries, a little heavier coat. Okay, there we go. I got both sides painted. We're going to let that dry for a little while. I can't flip it over and show you the other side just yet. Maybe when I put it on, I'll give you a quick glance, if I can remember. But anyway, I got both sides painted, and as soon as it dries, we'll stick it back together. Alright, my caliper's ready to go. It's drying, so I got to wait for that to dry too. Okay, so there we have the rotor mounted. A little bit different. Black instead of brown. And I do have my anti-seize on there. So, actually it's not anti-seize, it's more like the brake grease, you know, the kind of grease that you put on your pads. Whoa. So the brake parts lubricant, they're calling it. So anyway, I'm trying that out because anti-seize is pretty messy. Use anti-seize all my life. It gets everywhere. So I'm kind of trying this out. Alright, next is the caliper. We'll get the caliper back on. It's not a brake job, so I did compress the piston a little bit. And we'll put the caliper back on. Okay, well, a couple of things I'll point out so you notice it, just in case you don't, is my Krylon paint, the nozzle and everything was all jammed up, so I had to go to another red, so it's a little bit different, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. So, but I do want to point out how the caliper is really kind of sloppy. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because I have many spokes on my wheel, so you're not going to see it. If you just have 5 or 3 spokes on your wheel, it's going to stand out more. So this one is pretty hidden, so really it's just kind of the hint of red. You're not going to be getting on your knees and staring through the spikes of the wheel to see the caliper. So it's not really as critical on this particular job. The main thing I'm hiding and helping to slow down is the rust on the rotor. So as I combat the rust on the rotor, inspect my brakes, I'm going to bleed them, and then you know, I hit it with a little bit of paint on the caliper, kind of touch it up a little bit, just because it was old. And this is going to be looking a little newer. And then we'll just go on with life. So let me finish up here and then I'll show you. Alright, so this is a brake bleed video too. So I'm going to go ahead and bleed the brakes as I pop this off. Here is my old Bavarian Autosport pressure bleeder. So what I'll do is I'll screw this on to the reservoir, fill it up with brake fluid, pump it up to about 15 psi, I think 20 is the max, and open up the bleed screw and let it bleed out till it comes clear. Okay, I bought this for a BMW 7 Series. It also worked on my W221 Mercedes. I had a W221 S-Class Mercedes. It worked on that. And it works on the Volvo. Alright, I have my .3 fluid. It says it's synthetic, whatever the heck that means. I'll go ahead and pour that in the bottle. I use a pick to open it. It just makes life a little bit easier. I make sure all the foil's off the top so it don't accidentally drop in there. Now, just pour it in place. Glub, glub, glub. Alright, I don't care about saving it and reusing it. You know, it's kind of one of those things, once open, use it all or none. So, I might buy a spare to have in the garage just in case, but for the most part, not too worried about it. All four wheels are going to be flushed out. It'll be filled to the top because, in case you didn't know, these pressurizers, when they pump out, the level in the reservoir really doesn't go down. Also, the reservoir is divided in two. There's the rear and the front. So, you know, once the front is bled, all of the fluid will be changed because I'm doing the back now. Alright, we'll spin this guy on. And I just thought of this. When I'm done with the one with the right rear and I go to the left rear, I am going to relieve the pressure on this. I don't need to leave it pressurized the whole time because to get the caliper off on the other side, if it's pressurized, I don't want the brake pads pressing on the rotor. It'll be a pain in the butt to get that off. Alright, we're above 15, below 20. I'm going to pop it open and let it drain. I have my handy dandy little cup here, but of course, you know, you can rig something up. It's super easy. I've rigged all kinds of things up over time. Okay, what I like to do is put a closed end wrench on here. I don't like to use the open end, so I'll put a closed end wrench on here and then the bottle, but I want you to note that it is 11 millimeters. So that 11 millimeter that you've never ever used, well, you can use it on a Volvo to bleed brakes. So in case you rig something up, now I've done it without doing this, but anyway, the long piece that's going to go down into the fluid, that's going to be what the bleeder goes into. And then the short one up here at the top, that's just a vent. So as the fluid rises, it has pushes the air out. So that's how it's designed to work. But if you have two short ones and you just let it run in there and watch the hose to see if it gets solid, that's fine too. Okay, we're pressurized. We got a good view of the hose here. We're going to pull it out. Now there shouldn't be any air in there. I'm just exchanging the fluid, so I'll be extremely surprised if I see bubbles in there. Now there may be some bubbles as it pushes air out as the hose fills up, or even the bleeder valve, you know, that has to fill up and then spew out into the hose. So, you know, you might see a bubble here and there, but I better not see a whole bunch of bubbles because the brakes are working great. Alright. One other little tip. If you can't get it, don't force it. If this wrench doesn't pop it off and you're pulling, I wouldn't do that. I would get a large ratchet, 3/8, even a 1/2 inch, get your 11 millimeter on there and get it, and easy, get it started, break it loose, and then do your bleeding. Don't try and do it with the wrench. Wrenches are pretty sloppy, so if it's really stuck on there, break it loose with a socket, and then you can get your wrench on there and finish it up. Let's see what we have here. Oh, there we go. You see the fluid went up. Okay, now it's bleed. Also, there's no air in there, so we're just looking for clarity. Now I know the hose looks cloudy, but I can see it just fine. I can tell when clear brake fluid is coming out. So just FYI there. Okay, got the bleed screw nice and tight. Oops, dripping some fluid, didn't mean to do that. Wasn't thinking. So we got that out. And it's tight. Put my cap back on. And 3 more to go, and then we'll be done. Okay, so let's see what it looks like when I put the wheel on and see how we did. Alright, let me get it on and I'll show you. Alright, there we go. As you can see, the spokes hide quite a bit, and of course the rust is now black instead of brown, which you can't even see unless you look down at an angle from the top, like if you're standing getting in or out of the car or something like that, you'll see it. But from a side view like this, you can't even see it really that much. I mean, I can see the tops are black instead of brown. I can see the cooling vents are black instead of brown. So, more better. Get these started. Set the wheel down and put the torque on it. Thank you for watching.